amigos! Welcome to your performance novela, Us the Performers. In this episode, we are going to talk about a topic that has been coming up a lot lately. This is, how can I do performance tests in an Agile project? This is a very relevant question, as many of you, as well as many organizations, must be struggling with this. So today I am going to give you some explanations and recommendations on how you can assure that our application, made with an Agile methodology, has good performance. To start, I am going to describe some common sources of errors, since it is most likely that the Agile performance problems that you could be experiencing come from mostly two principal confusions. The first one is one that I have tried to make clear in this show from the beginning, that most people confuse performance testing with load testing.
Hey, employee, we have to test performance, so start scripting right now and simulate a lot of users hitting each of the system processes a lot.
Well, the second point is that, in my experience, many organizations have some confusion about what Agile is, what is it for, and why to try to use it. Regarding this second point, today I am going to talk to you about some details of Agile. Only a few details. Although, if you want us to give a general episode explaining details specifically on Agile, please leave some likes below, and I think that if we get about 20 likes, that's not much, those will show that there's interest in the subject. There, I will happily move away from performance topics and explain to you more Agile concepts. Just let me know. But for now, suffice it to say that one of the key components and goals of Agile is to frequently release and show changes to our end users. I'm not just referring to the famous sprints with this frequently. The sprints have something to do with it, but having sprints doesn't guarantee frequent releases. You must focus on it. The sprints are rather a tool to constantly release into production. And going back to the issue of performance confusions with performance with load testing, especially those done at the front-end level, the load tests done at the front-end level, take a lot of time to create them. And most of the time, they are much longer than what the sprint lasts, not counting the execution time of some of those scenarios. Some scenarios take days just to be executed. And well, on the other hand, the other issue is that there are still silos. This is isolated teams, what I'm meaning, that still have this mentality or hostility of testers versus developers, or even worse, performers against developers, where they are separate teams and again opponents. In this situation, the developer team released an almost finished and sealed product. They often do that, so that the performers need to reverse engineer it to automate it, which is time consuming and extends beyond scope the time that we are allotted, especially this sprint duration issue that I mentioned. And on top, frequently there is no communication, and sometimes it will be difficult for any doubt or comment to be transmitted, expressed, or answered on both sides, developers and performers. And here is an extra issue. With the silos, generally nobody wants to understand or understands the tasks of the other side, the developers versus the performers. To illustrate this, let me ask you some questions. Have you seen or gotten access frequently to the code of the application that you are testing for performers? Or do the developers know the code of the performance automations that you are generating? Huh? Well, if you answered yes, most probably you did not, but if you answered yes, maybe you have already solved half of the problems that we will talk about in this episode. But most probably you answered at least one no on those two items, right? Or both. And so Here we already mentioned some of the problems and situations that should be avoided. And since I have used lots of time of this episode to mention those problems and complaints and things that should not be done, now I am going to give you 5 tips that will help you to ensure good performance in your applications and solutions that are being made under an agile methodology. Number 1, you should stop trying to guarantee performance only doing load tests. As I have said it a lot already in this show, load testing should be the last thing to do when trying to guarantee performance, especially in an agile methodology. And well, you rarely really need to do an automated load test in Agile, since there are several other methods to do load tests continuously. Although, beware, traditional load testing with automations still must be done from time to time. I'm not saying that you never do automated load tests. You still need to do them, but not every time for everything. Number 2, share the task of performance automation and assurance, performance assurance with the developers, since the developers are the first line of defense here. This is because the generated code comes from them, they create it, and any new code or changes that they make should go hand in hand with the creation and maintenance of performance automations, paying special attention to unit code and method level performance automations and telemetry measurements in the classes and objects inside of the code. You have to prioritize where you automate, make it more frequently, and have way more coverage on the code level. And that brings us to the next point. Number 3, when automating for performance, make sure that your automation coverage follows the automation pyramid principle. This means that you need almost 100% coverage of automation at the unit level, at the very bottom of this pyramid. In other words, you must create unit tests that measure performance everywhere. All your code should have unit testing and performance measurement. Then, at the next level of the pyramid, that is the service layer, which is the one that is at the middle, you have to prioritize and automate only important or critical processes, but still having a decent and wide coverage at that level. Not too much, not too little. And then automate minimally in the end-to-end processes or the top of the pyramid. In other words, the user interface layer. Only do super important processes at that level. Short, straight to the point, making sure to automate only the processes that are used the most frequently and make them super efficient for load testing. Anything that you didn't test before, do it here. Number 4, measure performance everywhere. This requires having good performance monitoring, logging, analysis, and visualization tools. This point is more important as it has a greater impact. This is because it is more efficient to constantly and automatically measure and gather performance metrics, instead of just hitting systems and trying to get it through automations. Again, I am not talking about only metrics for load tests, but performance metrics for every type of use, from unit testing, manual testing, low load and services, up to uses in production that, or organic loads, people actually using the system. It is way better to immediately detect any performance problem because you can detect it better there, because if it stays unchecked or undercover, it could reach production becoming really expensive, really slow, and complicated to detect or solve. And number 5, last, automate the automations and then maintain them automatically. This is because in Agile, it is very important that everything happens in an automatic chain reaction, more or less like dominoes. When the first step occurs, it must trigger many more, the next and the next and the next. As an example, as soon as a code check-in is made in our solution, small tests and unit performance measurements should be triggered and registered automatically. With this, we can indicate if the new code can stay, that it's good, has good performance, or it is rejected immediately, sent back before completing the check-in process, so that the developer can review it and improve the performance. This implies when checking in, the automations always work because they also must have received maintenance or to be created just before the check-in. Therefore, the best person to do such maintenance or creation of the automation is the developer. It's the one who knows the code better and is the one who has just created it or made the change. Definitely is the one who can easily and quickly create or update the automations. And well, amigos, those were the main recommendations. I could give many, many, many more, but I don't want these episodes to get too long. So I think we will leave it here for today. And as always, please leave a comment below if you would like me to describe more recommendations, more agile stuff in another episode, as well as leaving any other questions that you may have. And well, that's all for today, and I hope that you really like this episode. For the moment, I say goodbye, adios, and until the next time. Adios, amigos. Hasta la vista, baby.